this is the basket we're going to create tonight. And that's the regular size, so that's the large. It actually is quite large. It would probably hold probably 4, maybe 5 Easter eggs in there. Less, maybe only 3 if you put some grass in there. It's very sturdy. It really is pretty strong, which will be probably surprising to you knowing how little glue we are actually going to use. But this is the large. And then I created another one out of cardstock, out of designer series paper that I had. And this color, this flower does not look good on here. It does not go with this, but I didn't have the stamp set that goes with this DSP. And so it's close enough. This freesia color is in the DSP, but it's really too bright on there, but I didn't want to change it because it was already glued. I did it early in the morning. And then there is this one. This is made from that Simply Marvelous paper back from Celebration, and this is the small one. So this is really cute. This would hold one of those plastic eggs, but it would hold plenty of Hershey's eggs. And if you don't want to put them in the bigger plastic eggs. So these are the 3. So let's go ahead and get started. So to begin with, you're going to need a piece of cardstock, and we're going to use most of this, but we're going to cut it down first. So I need to trim it down to 8.5 inches square. So it's already 8.5 inches in one direction. We just need to trim that down to 8.5. So this is an 8.5 by 8.5 square. While I've got my paper cutter out, I'm going to cut this remaining piece into a 1-inch width piece. So here's the 1 inch. This I can use, I'm going to actually knead it in a little bit for some decoration. So I'm going to set this aside. All right. So now we have this 8.5 by 8.5 inch piece of cardstock. Let me get my baskets out of the way here. I'm going to bring in my Simply Scored tool. You can use this. I like to use this for baskets. It's just a whole lot easier, but you can use your trimmer as well. So on this basket, we are going to score at 2 5/8 on all sides. So because I'm using cardstock, I like to use this smaller stylus end. It will hold up. When I'm using designer series paper, I like to use the wider tip because it is the paper is thinner, and so this can poke through a lot easier. So we're going to score at 2 5/8 on all 4 sides. So just rotate. Don't try to guess what 2 5/8 is in from this edge. Just do 2 5/8 on all 4 sides. So it may be hard to see right here, but you've got something, it is not exactly 9 equal squares. So these 4 corners are the same measurements. These 4 pieces right here are the same as each other, but different than the corners. And then this middle square is larger than each of the 4 corners. So I think you can see that in on camera. All right, so now that I've got those scores, and these are going to form the sides of our basket, I'm going to, on one end, it doesn't matter, like I can just kind of do this, like whatever end I want. They're all 4 edges are the same. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to score some more. I'm going to score at 7/8 of an inch, which is 1 tick mark before the 1, but I'm only going to score down to that score line right there. And then I'm going to score at 1 3/4. Same thing. So 7/8, 1 3/4. And then I'm going to go over here to 6 3/4. And then I'm going to go to 7 5/8. Now I think you can see that there are 3 individual sections right here that are all the same width. Same thing over here. I'm going to rotate it to the opposite side, so 180 degrees, and repeat the process. I'm going to score at 7/8, only down to that score mark, and then 1 3/4. And then I'm going to go over here at 6 3/4. And then at 7 5/8. Again, these measurements are all going to be on my blog no later than 9 o'clock. So you can find them there then. So that is almost all the scoring that we have to do. It's not quite all of it, however. So before I score any more, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut along these edges. So here are my other little score lines. I'm not going to cut those yet. I mean, you can. It's not going to hurt anything. But I'm just going to do this right now. Right up. I'm cutting right up to that intersection right there. Same thing over here. I am not cutting these corners off. I'm just cutting along this score line. I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees, go to the opposite edge, and do the same thing. Cut right up to that score line. Okay? So now if I go ahead and I fold along here, what I'm doing is I am actually tucking this out of the way. So I'm going to fold and then just put it right up against here because I need to cut my sides down a little bit. Whoops, sorry, wrong. I mean, you can fold on all of the score lines. You're going to see what I'm doing in a second. So these flaps are going to come up and form the sides of our basket. This piece right here, this free middle flap, I need to actually score and fold because it's going to be too tall for the side of my basket. So if I rotate it so that this flap that I want to score is on both ends, I'm going to fold this piece up and out of the way, tuck that up here, and then if I move this out of the way, I'm going to score 1/2 inch in. So since this is 8 1/2, 1/2 inch in puts me at 8 inches. So I'm scoring 1/2 inch in here, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to score in 1/2 inch. Okay, so again, you are putting the side that has the score lines up against, folding it in, or even you can fold the ones with the score lines in and then up like this. And then I'm scoring 1/2 inch in from each end. Honestly, if you just take it slowly on the playback of this video, you'll find you'll have quite a bit of success, I think. All right, all our scoring is done. So I'm going to remove my Simply Scored board. And I'm going to go ahead and burnish along these major fold lines, major score lines. And let's see, I got to do this one. All right, just getting nice crisp folds out of them. And then these 1/2 inch ones, I'm going to do those as well. They just fold onto them themselves and fold them in. and then you're going to glue them in. So use a little bit of adhesive. You don't need a ton. I love the liquid adhesive. You just have to maybe finger press it down a little bit. You don't need any fancy equipment, just your fingers will work. Same thing over here on this other end. Now fold it down and hold it just a second for it to adhere. It really doesn't take long. All right. So we are ready for the next step. You're going to cut along these little score lines. This basket is so cute. What I loved about this basket is this detail right here. Gives such dimension to the box. I fell in love with it just because of that. So cut on all these ones. And this is how we're going to get that nice decorative side to our box. Cut right up to that score line. Long cuts work best, as I found on the other side, but these scissors need to be sharpened. I'm getting stuck when I cut. All right, so there we have all sorts of little flaps. All right. We are now going to bring in our 1-inch piece and we're going to put the handle on. You don't need much glue, just maybe 1/2 inch up, that's it. And you adhere it and you can just eyeball it to the center here. I used a little bit too much glue, it's eking out a little bit. It's all right because I'm going to be covering this up anyway. And then if you run your finger along here, it kind of helps it bend, but it really bends quite nicely on its own. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm attaching the handle to the outside of my box, about 1/2 inch down, which is what that score line was too. Now what I didn't mention, this is a solid basket, and the reason why I wanted to use solid cardstock is because this shows up a little bit better, and so do my score lines. But you could have stamped all over this, so I might have actually added some flowers in Pale Papaya. I could do a tone on tone quite nicely, but I wanted to keep it simple for the directions because everything shows up a little bit better. Okay, so on the directions, it's now going to tell you to take the innermost flaps, the ones that are closest to the side of the basket, and you're going to fold them in. And that's what's going to be, you know, that's what's going to start to form that design. Your first folds, you're going to bring it up so that the point up here is about in the center of your handle, right at the top. I'm going to just apply adhesive, and you probably, you could put, you know, as much adhesive on there as you want, but you really only need the ends. So I'm going to put that up there and hold it for a second. And the other one, same spot. And you really want to try to get them in the same spot because that will make these the same on both sides. All right. I'm going to focus on one side right now so that we can get one side done, and then we'll just do the other side. So this next set of flaps, I'm going to go ahead and put my adhesive on. You could put the adhesive on all at once, but I found that it's hard enough keeping myself out of the glue, so I don't. Now, with this one, you're going to fold it so that it comes and it meets roughly where this, let's see if I can get it out of the way, where this point meets the edge of the handle and that other flap. It's close, it's not exact. Actually, I take that back. What I do is I aim it towards where the handle and the side of the box meets. It won't come up there, it won't be that long, but that's where you're gonna have it. And here's how you know when you've got it in the right spot. This piece will not be parallel to the bottom of the basket, it's gonna be just above it. So it's angled not like this, just a little bit above it. Again, it doesn't have to be precise. You're covering up all this middle anyways. And then your last two, put a little adhesive on the inside of the flaps. And those come down a little bit. And I found that if you try to get that bottom corner to the edge of that first flap, that's about where it needs to go. So same thing on the other one. So again, this isn't pretty. This intersection here, you've got some tabs hanging out here and some up here, but we're going to cover that up. So let's go through this process again because that will help solidify it for you. We're going to, I've got some adhesive on here. Looks like my table's dirty. I'm going to take the first flaps, apply a little glue, and you really don't need a lot. Okay, just put some on those flaps. Aim the top of this flap to the center of the handle. Center of the handle. Oops, for both of them. Okay, now you can see that these aren't both at the center. It's fine. Next flap. But that's where you're aiming. You might not hit it, but that's where you're aiming. Next flap, it's not going to be quite parallel to the bottom. It's going to be up a little bit. You want this top corner of the flap aiming towards where the basket and the handle intersect. Aim this top corner where the basket and the angle intersect. So can you see how this is pointed right towards that intersection? And then just hold it for a second, let the adhesive set up. And then you're going to do the same thing here. You're going to take this flap, come in and align the bottom edge or the bottom corner to where that bottom flap is. Same thing. Bottom corner is aligned along with that bottom edge. All right, I'm going to just let that set up for just a second. I'm going to put my glue on. Now we need to add what's going to hide the messiness that's in the middle. So I'm bringing out my daisy punch. Remember we used this last Friday night and made those little bunnies on that Easter card. This punch is retiring. There is a smaller one that's in the catalog. But this one, which is a perfect size for this large basket, is retiring. So if you don't want it, or if you don't want to miss out on it, you should order it soon. The smaller one would be great probably for the medium-sized box. So I could put a smaller daisy right here. I probably wouldn't put a daisy on this particular one just because there's no daisy in here, but I don't know if that matters to anybody. So I'm going to punch 4 daisies. So you can just round up all your scraps and punch from that. Or if you're like me and didn't round up your scraps to start, you're just starting with a new piece of cardstock. So I've got 4 daisies. And then you can take, we have layering circles that give you some circles. There are a bunch of circles in various die sets that you could use. I'm using an old punch. I think this is a 1/2-inch punch. So if you have an old punch, go ahead and use that out of the Pale Papaya. Oop, I need 2 of those. Oop. It's flying all over the place. So now we're going to adhere these guys together. We just need a little bit of glue in the center. Just a little bit. I'm going to take one of the other daisies on and I'm going to stagger it in the center there so that it fills in the gaps. Makes a fuller daisy, a double daisy. All right. And then I'm going to do the same thing right here. This basket's almost done. Well, I mean, the basket is done. It's just not completely decorated yet. So there's that daisy. Going to just add, and you could add this with a glue dot, but I've got my glue out, so I'm going to go ahead and just put this center in the daisy. Put this center in the daisy. One thing about punches, circle punches, sometimes you, when you've had them a while, you can sharpen them with some foil and then oil them with some wax paper, but sometimes they leave a little bit of an edge where the last part to punch out comes out. So I have my daisies. I'm going to take some glue, put it on the back sides of them. And adhere it and cover up all the messiness. Now, I'm calling this an Easter basket, but May is coming up, so you could call it a May basket. Mother's Day won't be far behind that. You could put some nice treats in it for your mom or a special woman in your life. Or, you know, most moms will even sometimes give their kids stuff on Mother's Day, so you could do that. Make them feel especially bad if you did not receive anything from them. But our basket is done. So again, it would be nice to dress this up with some extra, stamping tone on tone maybe. But quite an easy basket. Let me just show you. This is the same basket made out of the, let me see I forget the name of it. It's the one that goes with the artistic dies so this is the Expressions in Ink Designer Series paper, and I used the coordinating stamp set to stamp this rose. I think it's pale papaya, and that one's probably pumpkin pie that's in the middle maybe. It might be mango melody as well. And then just die cut it out and put it on there, both sides. So I really like this basket too.